Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers with SF DocFest. Welcome back. As you see, we're still kind of in this new film festival world where we're having screenings live at the Roxy. But for those of you that can't join us at the theater, we want to make sure you have a chance to kind of see some of the great independent films around the world we're able to share. And you just saw the terrific doc, Louder Than You Think. And we have the filmmaking team here. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
How you doing?
We love music docs. We love quirky stories. We love just cool independent filmmaking. And so this was just a really terrific film that kind of was a collision of all those things. I imagine many out there in the world are wondering, how did you kind of stumble upon this story and know that this was kind of something you want to kind of paint for the kind of larger screen?
Well, I've known Gary Young for close to 45 years. Ever since I was a young teenager, we played in bands together, and we've remained friends ever since. And you know, Gary's story is a very unique one. You don't meet many people like Gary, and you know, things like what has happened to him, they don't happen to most people. So we knew for quite a while that we wanted to tell Gary's story, and fortunately we got the chance to do it.
And with that relationship, how was it that you were able to kind of finally kind of pull the trigger, and were there guidelines, or how did you kind of kick things off?
Well, my producing partner Jeff Clark and our director of photography, David Nicholson, they had actually started to work on the documentary back in 2007. And for whatever reason, it got shelved. And so back in 2018, maybe early 2019, I approached Jeff with the idea of like taking the existing footage and trying to put something back together. And he was game to do it. And through David, we found Jed to come in and be our director. So it was just pre-COVID that we started on this again. And then, of course, running into COVID kind of threw a spanner into the works, and everything took a little bit longer than we had anticipated. But
yeah, and we were able to utilize some of that footage from 2007. So if you see in the film, there's a couple throwback moments where Gary's with his mom, or Gary's kind of showing us the Yes album cover and things. That's all like kind of outtake footage from that shoot. So we just kind of said, this is really great. Like, let's just incorporate it the best we can. And I think it kind of works in the context of this film using so many different types of mediums. And we have a couple of Zoom interviews, and we have old photos that are a little bit low res, and this type of VHS footage and different. I shot a bunch of stuff with like a mini DV camera to just sort of replicate it being archival. So we had a lot of mixed media in that sense. And I think that we were able to use that helped tell some of the story. Especially, I mean, we had footage of Gary with his mom, who's, has since passed. So it's really special that we were able to actually have some stuff like that available to us.
And what, was he, kind of game from the beginning about having his story told, and what was the kind of approach in the sense of, did you know the story you wanted to tell before you started filming, or was that something you guys discovered in the editing process?
So Gary is always very game to be on camera, to be any kind of attention that he can get from anyone is pretty welcomed by him. So, the idea of doing a project about him, I think he was like, let's go, let's do it. Whatever you guys need, whatever you guys want. And actually, to kind of fast forward a little bit, we did a friends and family screening to show Gary, Jerry, and some other people involved, like a kind of a early cut of the film, just so that they could see what we had made, because it had been a few years with COVID and everything. And I said to Gary before the screening started, I said, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And he kind of like had a little bit of a tear in his eye, and he said, you guys made a movie about me. Like, what more could somebody ask for in this life? And that was really like kind of, touching for me to hear him say that. But I think that gives you a sense of like how much he valued being the star of this documentary. I mean, this is everything he ever wanted. So I think that every point he was vulnerable, he was open, he was honest, and that was a real dream for us as filmmakers because it was easier to get some of the things that we wanted with a subject who was an open book for us. And then the other part of your question about knowing what the film was going to be about, I mean, I'm very meticulous with outlining stuff. That's just kind of my own like neuroses and OCD and everything. I really try to put together outlines and things. I'd be very curious to revisit that now and to kind of go back and say, like, I'm sure it's so different from what I thought. I mean, and that's just part of the process. I think you have to start somewhere and then you figure it out as you go through. And then you know, as we shot, and then I'm looking through and putting the edit together and seeing, okay, we're missing this, we're missing that, or like, you know, you learn things from being with somebody and talking with them. And so there's a lot of new types of parts of the through line that is like the, you know, that's coming to the forefront. So, you know, we had to be very adaptable, but I think that's not unique to this project.
And do you think, I mean, given your, you know, O'Brien, your long relationship with them and Jed, you know, just kind of starting out, what do you think surprised you most, I guess, during the making of the film?
I don't know if I was surprised by anything. However, I will say that you know, a couple of the guys in Pavement besides Gary, I've known them for almost just as long. But maybe I was surprised by some of the stuff I've learned about how the band formed and how they worked in the early days. Like I did know these guys, but I was no longer living in Stockton where it all took place. And so for me, just learning the history, I found it very rewarding.
And you know, I think one of the things many of your folks are going to talk about when they come out of the theater and, you know, grab a drink down the street is like, you know, the puppets. Like, what was the, you know, when was that kind of decision made, you know, aesthetically to kind of tell the story, and how did you kind of, you know, kind of develop that kind of look?
Well, we were concerned about just having too many middle-aged white guys on the screen for too long. So it was our producing partner, Jeff Clark. It was his idea to use the marionettes. And we were lucky enough to get a woman by the name of Adrienne Rose Leonard with Little Wonder Productions, who directed all of the puppet sequences. And Jed worked with her very closely on that. So do you have anything to add there, Jed?
Believe it or not, working with puppets is very different than working with humans, I learned. They're not the same. They're harder, actually, more difficult, more stubborn, I would say. I mean, it was a really fun experience to work with Adrienne and, you know, work with the whole team. I mean, we built sets. We did a whole lot of pretty complicated things. And Adrienne had some really wild ideas of, you know, rotating sets and different styles of puppetry and things. And we just said, okay, let's do it. One of the little anecdotes that I always tell is, you know, there's a point in which Gary is in a courtroom and the judge is telling him, like, you need to, like, you know, we're going to lock you up. And I wanted the puppet Gary to look up at the judge. Like, I wanted his face to start here and then look up at the judge. And I was telling that to Adrienne, and she's like, okay, that's going to take like 45 minutes. And I was like, what? Just to look up? And she's like, no, you got to re-rig, you got to do this, you got to do that. And like, that was like when it clicked that, like, oh, this is like, I'm out of my depth here. Like, this isn't, you know, this is not my world. I have to like just be a little bit more sit back and just, you know, let her just do the things. And luckily she really killed it. So, but we worked very closely together, and it was a great collaboration. But just it's a funny lesson in puppets and the way in which, if you don't know what you know that world, you are not going to last long working with those little things. So, but it was fun.
Very cool. And what did Gary think of the film, and what's he up to now?
So Gary really liked it. I mean, he So at South by Southwest, where we premiered the film, Gary was there. We had 2 screenings, and he was there for both nights. And he, in Gary fashion, handed out bananas to people coming in. He let them know that these are high in potassium. Just letting you know, making sure you gotta get enough potassium. He's like bananas. He was having a ball. I mean, he really was like, I think this is just a really fun thing for him. So he's really loved the film. Jerry, his wife, has really loved the film. And yeah, I mean, what is Gary up to? I mean, he's had a couple minor health complications and things. I mean, Brian can maybe speak a little bit more to like his current status.
Yeah, well, one thing, he's still living in his house out there on the outskirts of Stockton, but he continues to work on music. It's mentioned in the documentary, one of the bands he was in Stockton was the Krill Band. And I think those guys, they're working on a project with some of the old recordings. So hopefully we'll see something come up there.
Cool. And, the thing I always try to kind of remind our audiences with is that, we, the audience, are kind of like the grassroots street team for independent filmmakers like you all, just like, when you first discover a band that you love, and so our job, after the screening, is like to get on social media and say, I just saw this great, film, you need to see it in your town, or, talk it up. What are ways that folks can kind of continue to follow the film and social media, and also your own happenings as artists?
Well, we have pages up on all the social media platforms for the film. If you just look up Louder Than You Think on, Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, you should be able to find it there. So, Jed.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all there is to say, I think, about that.
Awesome. Well, everybody get out there and share the news about this wonderful film, Louder Than You Think. And thanks again for sharing it with us, guys.
Well, thank you
so much for having us.
We're very excited to be part of the SF Doc Fest. I'll just take the opportunity to say, go Golden Gators. I'm an SF State alumni, and they're very happy to be back in San Francisco, even if it's virtually.
Very cool.